All right, everybody. This is Coach Jay with JDI Coaching, and we're back again talking about this catastrophe. But it's pretty crazy how so many dealers are being affected right now, not only in the United States, but globally. So I have a special guest here, Mr. Greg Chittum. He's parts director. He's been in the parts world for a long, long time. I thought it was a great opportunity, and I asked him to come on board with us to talk a little bit about how critically important the relationship is, or it's going to be right now, probably for the next day or so, in regards to how are we going to be able to overcome and take care of our service customers by partnering even closer with our parts department. And I just wanted to, Greg had some great insights where he wanted to share with everybody about what he's doing and how his national corporation is tackling and handling a lot of these things and really coming together with his service team as well as his outside business to be able to take care of his customers and not let it affect it where people want to feel like they want to close down the door. So, Greg, thanks so much for joining us here on JDI Coaching. I have the utmost respect for you. You're always one of my go-tos when I have some questions. I mean, I know that we have the G-Man, and he's always been super helpful. So when I'm not with him, sometimes I have to pick up. I mean, just last week alone, I was with you because I was doing some training at your store and talking about it, and we were able to spend a little bit of time, and you gave me a lot of nuggets in regards to how you've ratified and really enhanced your parts department to not only be one of the most profitable in the country, but also being able to overcome obstacles just like this today. And you really have been prepared for these things because we've been in this business for a long time, right, Greg? And I
Yeah.
know that this is not the first time we've lost power, something has gone down, we weren't able to order parts, things like that. So what I'd like for you to do is just share with us a little bit about what you've been experiencing today, how it's affected your business, and how have you been able to overcome these things, and what kind of support have you had to be able to do?
Well, first of all, it was one of those things you get up in the morning and you get on Facebook and I see the parts department where the magic happens. Everyone's like, CDK's down, CDK's down, CDK's down. I'm like, oh, great. So let me check my corporate email. Nothing, right? So I'm
Yeah.
driving in and I'm just, well, maybe it's them. We're a big corporation. We got, no problems. And then I get the phone call from the guy here. Like, hey, dude, you know what? Now you've got me concerned that you're calling me. And like, make sure your service manager is good. And I have a new service manager, and so he's never probably been through any of this. And I was from the days of hand rags. And so
Right.
sure enough, we came in, and everyone's like, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" Well, first of all, we're not going to stop doing business. We're not going to
Right.
turn away people. We're not going to be like, we can't do this. We're just not. I mean, if I have to give away the parts to keep the technicians turning wrenches, we're going to do that. I mean, not that I want to do that, but that's kind of the bottom message is like, we're going to figure it out. Don't worry, but keep those guys in the shop turning wrenches and then keep bringing the customers in. Because if we let them go because we can't write them up, they're going to go to somewhere else that will write them up. And so get them in, figure it out. So right out of the gate, it was we'll write down what we're handing out, and then it's okay. Well, how do we find where we get the part at? Well, there's a lot of different scenarios. I actually kind of screwed up because it was a practice I used to do a lot, and I'm going to tell a lot of your listeners out there, run an inventory pad once a month. That keeps you fresh. And so I haven't ran an inventory pad in a while because we haven't had this issue. And guess what? I'm going to admit it, I got caught with my pants down. So like, how do I find these parts on the shelf? Nice Excel sheet, paper, anything would have done this. I have an old inventory pad that 2-3 months old, and we change parts in locations all the time. So that wasn't going to do us any good. We're a Subaru dealership and we use parts. I know BMW, same thing with their SRD and a couple other companies. You can go in and plug into their site and it'll actually tell you what the bin location is. It'll probably tell you what your hold on hand was. So that's kind of how we were going about trying to find if we actually had the part and where the part was, because it's a needle in a haystack, unless if you're one of those companies or parts departments that organized by part number in numerical order, you could go that route, but still it's needle in a haystack. So it made it a lot easier just to show the guys how to pull up the part number. And then next thing, how do we bill it out? How do we know what the price is? And if you're on Matrix, it's like I'd rather take a little bit of something than absolutely nothing. So like if you're on Matrix, you can pull up the list price or manufacturer website and find out what it is. And we'll just do that for right now. So there's a couple of things that, everyone wants to find the obstacle, and it's our jobs as managers and leaders to take those obstacles out and give them no reason to stop working for the day.
Yeah, so in your experience with this, I mean, what are the tools? I mean, we were talking about earlier, G-Man and I, and he gave the suggestion, if you have things like just Excel, take an Excel and understand where you're going to, distribute your parts, make sure you have it under control, and just simplify it as best as humanly possible. I know that a lot of us are going old school with just pen and paper, right? But at the same time, you want to keep yourself organized in regards to what you're handing out, because I can only imagine just how parts managers may be feeling right now, where, holy cow, man, this is going to jack up my inventory. This is going to do this. This is going to do that. How am I going to, reconcile this? And also parts pricing. How do I? So if you could share with us some of the best practices, Greg, because I know you're a master at this and you've been doing this for a long, long time, is none of this stuff even jars you at all, which I think is
Yeah.
fantastic. And it's helping your service manager out because he's new to it, right? But to you, this is like simple. So what kind of best practices are you using, or how were you best prepared to able to tackle this where it's really not going to, overwhelm your business or your department?
So, like I said, we started out with pen and paper, right? Because it wasn't the simple things like get going first thing. And then it was like, let's pull up, like you said, Excel sheet. Luckily, my corporation had that already set up so that we can implement an Excel sheet that had where you could put your dealer name, the part number, the price of it. And so we're doing quotes that way. So we're pulling up, it's an Excel sheet, we're printing them off and we're handing them off with to the service advisor. I like I said, we're now converting to an Excel sheet to all the parts that we're handing out. So actually, I was talking to one of my counterparts at another store. He's like, "Yeah, how are you doing with this?" And he's like, "I'm going to build an Excel sheet." I'm like, "That's a great idea." So we're kind of doing the same thing. It's implementing it. Unfortunately, like I said, I'm trying to think the last time actually we had a long CDK dropout. It's usually an hour or so because of power or something. But even then, it's one of those things that you never plan for it, right? And so it's just a matter of implementing processes and talking to your fellow colleagues. So I'm not gonna lie, we were paid pen and paper, and someone, like I said, my colleagues, like, we're doing Excel on everything we're handing out, and we're putting VIN numbers for it's because we don't have an RO number. We're using the VIN number so that we can go back and when the RO gets generated, we can actually bill it out and do that. There's a couple different ways, like I said. We've had to implement just even on the pricing of stuff. It's like I don't know what the cost is, but I know what, like I said, list is, and I can give that to the service writer. We can put that in Excel and they can add it to their labor and then bill it out to the credit card. It's going to be some reconciling on the back end. I'm sure I'm going to be here late after it's all said and done. But in the end of the day, I know, like I said, parts managers are worried about their inventories and being messed up. What's the worst case scenario? You do hand out a part, you don't bill it out. Like I said, to me, I'd rather do that all day long than say, I'm too scared and hang up technicians, hang up customers. So my best practice I'd say for someone is if you're fluent in Excel, build an Excel sheet, build it with RO, which would be in our case VIN number, or however you guys are writing up. If you're doing old school paper, you can use if they're sequenced, you can use that as your RO number. But you definitely have a VIN number, part number, quantity, and then, like I said, when it comes back up, we're going to have to reconcile. We're either going to go through all those sheets and figure it out, whether it's Excel or handwritten. So I'm not saying there's a one right way or wrong way, but I think for the most part, depending on your staff, I'm really lucky. My staff kind of, like I said, they took the reins on it. They were the pen and paper at first, and then, hey, of course, I get that. Well, how do I do this? How do I do that? I can't think of any real examples right now other than someone, I got one a special order part. They knew that the customer ordered it. It wasn't prepaid. Normally we do prepaids, but for whatever reason it wasn't prepaid. I think because the customer didn't know which one they wanted. We are just going to figure it out. And it's like, okay, what do I do with I go, well, this is an exception to the rule. You're going to bill out that part at this price, and we're going to have to go back and either void that invoice that was out there, and we're going to have to make sure we have it on Excel sheet, like, or in this case, or your log sheet, that this is what we need to do when we get back up and running. So I
Have
don't think
you
there's any pretty way of doing it.
Yeah, no, I could imagine. So tell me, what are you doing about your like outside sales force? For example, your clients, your collision centers, or independent shops that you have accounts with, and they rely on you and in your inventory. I know that they're in your market. Aren't there like 9 other Subaru dealers in a 50-mile, 100-mile radius or whatnot? And so I'm pretty sure that not all those individuals have the same DMS as you. How are you reassuring your outside clients that, hey, we're still in business, we're taking care of you, we're going to do what is necessary, and you're using the resources you have right now to be able to take care of that. How have you overcome some of that?
So it's funny because we literally just sat there probably 20 minutes before I was talking to my GM, and we were just joking about it because the 9+ dealerships that are around us, not one of them's on CDK. Everyone's
Oof.
on Techion, Dealer Track, Reynolds, and there's not one that I can think of that is on CDK except for us. We're still answering the phones. We're letting them know, like, hey, we're having some issues, but give us a minute. We're going to figure it out. Perfect example. I had my certified collision center call, sent me an order through, and I just placed the order. I submitted outside of the CDK. I need those parts here. I'm not going to hang them up either. Once again, we have an Excel sheet that I can technically bill all those parts out, put it aside because they are a charge account. So I can't really charge it to CDK, and I'm not going to collect a credit card. So I'm going to have to set that aside and go back and do the leg work and get it all billed out. So regardless, I think whatever you do, you're going to have to do leg work. But we're assuring everyone that, hey, pick up the phone, let them know. Everyone's been really cool about it, right? I mean, it's not too many people pay attention to automotive news or any of that stuff, but you let them know it's like, hey, we're down, but we're here. We can still manage. Like I said, the body shop that I deal with, that was probably a 50-line item collision order, and it was like, let's just get it coming here.
So you saying, so again, I know a lot of people are going to be listening to this who have other, not just DMSs, but they have other OEMs and manufacturers and those systems. The way that you look at it, you still had your order, you still were able to do an order through the
Yep.
OEM system and whatnot, and it probably isn't connecting, of course, with your DMS that's down currently.
It's not as simple.
Yeah,
It's work. It's a little bit of work. I mean, we get used to the old school of like just press a button, it sends, right? No, I
yeah.
have to sit there and key punch it, or you have to copy paste drop, that kind of stuff. It's not as simple as it was. You can throw your hands up and say, I don't want to do this. And I think that's where we get in a lot of ruts. It's like, I heard some people going, well, I'm just going to send people home today because there's nothing for them to do. And I'm thinking, God, so now you're going to come in tomorrow, not our store, but like other, dealerships out there. We're just sending, people home. That's bad. You're giving up all that work. And if you're standing around doing nothing, except keep punching in, it's going to take a little work, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
one of our friends who runs a store with this problem right now, one of the genius things that they did is they took their office people and instead of sending them home because CDK was down, send them down to the departments to discuss what are the best things that could help
Yeah,
them, because of course the accounting offices are going to take a grueling hit on this because they got
yeah.
to reconcile things. So they're working hand in hand to just be communicative to them and let them know, okay, if I would suggest we do this, if we're going to do the credit card machines, let's do that. Let's make sure we get everything accounted for accordingly. Let's use these Excel sheets. Let's, make sure that we're not losing car deals today. What are we doing when you're, with WIOs and accessorizing cars and
Well, I
being
just had
able to put things?
perfect example. I just had a WIO right now. Same thing. We had to ship out the part. It was a heat deal. Ship out a customer's key it was from last night. Like the customer didn't have the key. We couldn't find the key or whatever. And they're like, "Hey, can we ship out some formats?" I'm not going to tell the salesperson. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Like, let's get it shipped out. Put it on the spreadsheet. One of the things I got to tackle, when I'm going to have to chase down that service or salesman and get that WIO because he couldn't generate it. But you're not going to stop business. You're not going to go, well, come see me 2 days later or a day later when this is all fixed. Because if it doesn't get fixed tomorrow and it doesn't get fixed the next day, what if this goes on for 2 weeks? What's your game plan? Like, I've heard this could take up to 2 weeks. So in the back of my head, if it takes 2 weeks, I need to be able to figure out how I'm going to reconcile 2 weeks worth of parts and going out this. And I got to figure out how am I going to bring in parts. Most parts departments are stocked up for 45-day supply, so they should be able to run out their stock. But you still have those special orders you got to figure out how you're going to deal with. You got to figure out even if the minute stuff. Let's say the sensor that you only order one time when you sell it, not the month supply of of oil filters that you have. Those are the little things that you might want to start thinking about, because what if this does take 12 days, 2 weeks, whatever,
Wow, that would be
what, right?
crazy. Yeah, it's
So, I
crazy.
mean,
I can't
like,
even imagine that.
So yeah, so I mean, after I get off this call with you, I'm gonna go through and start thinking like, what if? I hate to be the doom and gloom guy. What if? Right? I need to
Yeah.
prepare for it. Like I said, luckily we had some. As I'm sitting here talking, I got a spreadsheet sent over to me for Matrix for your Matrix so that way you can plug in and get your Matrix calculation for your parts pricing if you want to try to
Wow, that's
sell the
amazing.
Matrix. So I mean, I didn't have time to do that today. I'm just trying to keep, the wheels of the dealership turning.
Yeah.
Uh, thank God I do have some of those resources to build that. I guess I sent you some stuff earlier saying, "Hey, pass this along if it can help them out."
Yeah, it's great. And you know what? We
So
have some of those tools here readily available that Greg, you've had and you use. And I think they're fantastic tools. And I'd love to, offer that up for sure. And just reach out to us, jdicoaching.com, and we can help you out with that. Now, one other question. What happens, and again, just because of my curiosity, what do
yeah.
you do with bulk items? What are you doing with managing like your oils and your all your fluid that usually are you're just putting into a system, billing them out? I mean, does anything change? What have you seen as probably one of the most grueling or biggest challenges that you're facing right now when it comes to things like that? How are you overcoming that? Or is it to you,
um,
is it simple?
I don't know if it's simple. It's all my guys, right? They're having to do the manual labor portion of it. So yeah, like oil changes over and over. But it's because we're not entering it in as a part number. We know like okay, oil. Let's just say the oil and filter is going to be $49 in parts, right? So
Yeah.
we're able to just make that on the handwriting sheet for the visor. It's $49 part, and they can move on. With the hardest part, I think, is the quotes, quoting out the bigger jobs.
Mm,
And
yeah.
letting them know, do we actually have this, so that they can relay that to the customer, like, hey, you know what, our system's down. It says we have the parts, or and we want to keep your car, because if I told you that I didn't have the parts, or I don't know, you're gonna want to pick up your car and bring it back, right? And we
Right.
know that that's not a great experience for anyone. The hardest late part or work that we've had to do is to make sure that we have the parts that we're quoting out, so that we're not setting an expectation that we'll get your car done and then we don't get your car done. It's
Yeah.
that I would say that's been the hardest one. But luckily, like I said, we've kind of shifted, uh, where it's, I got one guy. It's funny because they literally, I got one guy, like I said, he's just managing the parts that are going out on was on paper, but like I said, we're going to go to the spreadsheet portion, which I think he's might be doing now. And then the other guy is the one that's looking up stuff, and checking to see, hey, is this, something that we would have had in stock. Oh yeah, it says we have 5 of them. Okay, it says 1. Let me go back and check that bin location, make sure it is actually 1, because we might have sold that one earlier in the day. So there's a lot of that leg work going on. Like I said, a lot of people just don't want to do it. I hate to say being lazy, but it's like I heard someone's like, I wish dealer track would go down so I can go home. I'm like, how do you not get a paycheck? So
Yeah,
I'm
it always
fortunate. My
surprises
guys,
me in regards to that.
like I said, I once again thank my guys here that they've all kind of figured out little routines, but to take off different loads, because the quoting thing I think is the hardest part. For them to accurately give a quote of what we have in stock and what we don't have in stock.
So how about tomorrow morning when you get your order? I mean, what is your game plan for that? And how do you think you're going to be able to intake all those parts that you get from your order?
Yeah, so that's gonna be an interesting one because we scan in our parts, and
Yeah.
so right, and the manufacturer stopped giving packing slips, but I know a lot of them offer where you can go print packing slips, and I know my manufacturer Subaru does that now. So we're gonna print those packing slips. We're gonna check in old school way, circle, 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 circle,
Yeah.
uh,
Wow.
and then same thing. Luckily, the packing slip has the bin location. The only bad thing is when we scan in, we change bins sometimes. If a part doesn't fit on the shelf,
Oh,
it's not some. We're not going to just rearrange the shelf. We'll pull the parts off and move to other locations. So, like, we will scan a part into a bin to make sure it still lives there. And in this case, we're probably not going to be able to do that. So we're going to go by what it said was 2 days ago when the system looked at my inventory and said, "Oh yeah, you have." That was in bin A101 BC, whatever bin that might be, and we're going to put it in there. So my gut feeling is, if you're a parts manager and you're having 2 or 3 days of this, I would say when it comes back up, I would be doing cycle counts. I would be that route because you are going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen. It's human error. And so if you're not on the cycle count, I would be, and I wouldn't worry so much about your fast moving your oil, like you said, your oil filters, your bulk, that stuff. It's, anyone can walk back grab an oil filter. That wasn't a problem for us. It's like, oh, oil change, we could throw that out all day long. We didn't have to look up part. It's just grab it and go. But it's those one and two items that I don't know. I'm going to throw out an oxygen sensor. That you might only have one of. You handed it out, or better yet, it came in, and for whatever reason, my shipping and receiving guy, he likes to rearrange based on the shelf space. And so it's not all the time, but let's just say if you did move it, you might throw it on the shelf. And where it lived 2 days ago, but right before the system, he changed it. It didn't get caught. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, but it could be. But once again, I know for us, we can cycle count with a scan gun. And if you're on CDK and you don't have a scan gun, I would highly recommend it. And if you don't know how to use one, I would say reach out to the G-Man because he can show you how to use a scan gun. He taught me back in the day. It's a game changer, for those dealerships that don't have it, because you can count a whole inventory in like no time, and you can, I actually, what was funny is when we were talking this morning, Jair, about CDK being down, the scan gun was the last thing that went down. We were able to check in the order this morning.
No way.
Yeah,
Wow.
we had access. We had access until it was probably about 9 o'clock, Pacific time with the scan gun. Meanwhile, everyone was down before that. So I don't know why the scan guns held out the longest, but they did.
Well,
So
that was a lot of luck. That's good.
yeah,
But now you guys have to prepare for tomorrow morning. Are you going to make any adjustments in personnel? I mean, I usually have one guy come in and check everything in. Are you going to bring in some more people to support that, or is there
no,
no
no.
need
I
for it?
mean, no. Like I said, my guy's pretty good. I mean, but if I needed to, yeah, like I said, we'll see how it goes. If he's behind tomorrow because he doesn't have a scan gun, we'll step up and get it out, because we all know that's the last thing you want to do is have that guy, in your way. And I don't want, you've been to my store. I don't have a shipping area, right? It's in the middle of the shop. So my guy's got to get that order checked in before my techs start working, or he's in their way. When they built our dealership, they did not think about parts. It was an afterthought. He's in the shop 6 in the morning. He's got to be done before those techs come in.
Let me ask you this: where do you think? What words of advice would you give? A service advisor who's listening to this, a service manager, or even a general manager who's listening to this, in regards to how this is going to affect their business through your department, depending on how you guys are working to overcome and tackle these challenges. What would be the thing you would say to each one of those to tell them, hey, like, how do you give them some peace of mind?
For a service advisor, I understand like the service advisor side of it, right? They're just trying to take care of the customer, and if we just throw our hands up and don't help them, we would be the bottleneck, right? I mean, I could easily say no. I know in the past I've been known a parts manager like, no, we're not doing this because my inventory is more precious than your customer, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you've probably seen those parts managers out there,
and they're all over the place, and that's the
right?
thing,
It's like
Greg.
how dare you take that crushed ring without billing it out, right?
Right.
It cost me 75 cents. My inventory, it's like you got to look at the bigger picture. You really do. I mean, once again, you've got people need to make paychecks. You've got customers that need to get their car fixed, and the last thing I want to do is hand them to my competition because we can't do something. Like I said, I literally would rather give away the part, take all the labor, and not let my customer defect to my competition to see how much better it is on that side, if that makes sense. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
if you really want value to that customer, I would say, you know what, you're going to have to sacrifice that but you shouldn't, because like I said, you should be able to kind of mitigate some of that by making sure you're billing it out or getting some kind of value dollar wise on the repair order, right? So if I'm telling you like, hey, oil filter is 595, list price, make sure you collect the 595, and we're not losing out on it. Then going back to you said bringing in the office saying, hey, we're going to have a bunch of money out here on schedules. that you're not going to know. We're going to have to sit there and pair that up. That's going to be a fun one. I think that's like some corporations love their schedules. Like you're, 7 days with you got payment and we don't have anything to go against, and vice versa. It's like, at the end of the day, you know, once again, I will deal with that before I let a customer walk.
Yeah,
You know,
before we lose any money, before we lose
yeah. I
business,
mean,
before we it's just you can't sacrifice that. And I think that's the most important message here is that do not
yeah,
sacrifice your business for something that you can't control. Control what you can control
yes,
and do what you can. I mean, right now in these moments, it's about over communication. It's
yeah,
about checking in, making sure where are we, how can we best, improve ourselves. And I can only imagine Luis, your general manager right now, because he's looking at everything saying, okay, I have a centralized system that is down. I still have to do car deals. I still have to try to do finance. I still have to, make sure that my team feels supported. And I'm sure he's working overload like every general manager and owner
oh
right
yeah.
now, trying to figure it all out.
And he was the one who's like, "Did you print your pad?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't printed a pad in a while." And I wanted to like just, thanks, Luis. But he's right. It's like I need to start doing that as part of my monthly thing. Just keep a current pad. But once again, I would say suggest go to each department and figure out what they need help with, because you might have something that they weren't thinking of, and vice versa. So I knew that they were doing car deals, but I didn't even know how bad or what their struggle was. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to help, but I was willing to listen and see what they were struggling against. And yeah, that's a rough one, because you can't do finance, you can't do really anything on there.
Can't do anything. I was telling the G Man earlier, I got really lucky because my fixed operations director did a drill on us one day and he planned everything, told nobody but the general manager and upper management, told even the corporate offices, I'm going to do a drill, imagining that we go down. What do we do? How do we not panic? What structure do we get? And when we went through the drill, it was incredible. We learned so much. I understood so much more about, you know, catastrophe management, because that's what we looked at it as, is
Yeah,
catastrophe management. When you have something like that going down, you have to not make it abundantly aware to the consumer, because it just scares them and go, oh, do I trust, do I not trust? And so although our drill only lasted about 2 hours,
mhm,
going on a whole day, I could only imagine what's happening and how people are trying to navigate through all of this. But what
yeah,
it does is, like I said earlier with the G Man, what it allows us to do is reflect on this, and then we create a process for it. You, Greg, and your awareness, and Louise, you guys are very process oriented individuals, because you have to be. You have to know how to manage your inventory. You have to know how to do all these things. And so it's going to be critically important that after all this ends, that you guys all come together and say, okay, what did we learn? How did we fix it? And how do we avoid it or be prepared to reduce the risk of exposure that we would have if this.
You know what this sounds great for? It sounds like a great class that you should teach. Should
I
offer.
am going to. I
I think
literally, like,
so. I mean,
literally.
well, it's funny. We pay like KPA and all these companies to come out and have that, and all this stuff. We
Yeah.
do, but we don't do it for this. And you know what? It's something that like I said, when we get off of this thing, I think you and I need to sit down, and maybe next time you come out,
Oh,
we discuss it a little bit. And because once again, we had a handful of handwriting. My service manager had to go down to Staples and go get some more invoices. And then he
yeah.
told the person at Staples, he said, "Hey, if anyone comes looking for us, he bought them all, right? He bought all whatever 4 boxes. So if anyone comes looking for me, here's my business card. Tell them I'll sell them for $500 a box."
Smart. Smart man.
It's
Smart man.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, once again, we. It's not like this hasn't happened to us. Like I said, power goes out, stuff like that, but we don't train for it. And I think you're
Yeah.
right. How often does KPA come out and talk to technicians about certain training or certain protections and stuff like that? Maybe we need to implement that at the same time frames. Like, okay, because we do have personnel that does change. We do need refreshers of like, okay, how are you going to run a credit card if the credit card machine goes down? How are you going to do
Exactly.
this? All right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And let's discuss it. So being in front of it instead of behind it is always easier to deal with. So
I think
yeah,
we live in a world, though, that we believe that, oh, that's never going to happen to us. It's like
right.
this whole cybersecurity and all this stuff. I mean, that'll never happen to us. We'll be fine. We have plenty of protection, but look at what happened today. And so we need to bring awareness to this because it's happening. And this is the way that we're really going to get attacked, or this is the way that companies could be really be vulnerable. And we just need to be brutally aware of the things that are happening here, and protect ourselves. So
Yeah.
this is a great lesson. It's a great lesson, and I agree with you, Greg. And so I will be working, JDI will be working to developing some of these solutions, and we will be training and teaching all of our clients and anybody that would want to, how to really navigate through this, because it's critically important. And that's why we're here. That's why we came online. That's why we're going to go live. That's why I want to share this message with everybody, because I've been on the phone all day long and people just asking questions. I've even gotten, I'll tell you what, the biggest competitor, one of the big competitors out there, I've had those employees call me going, "Hey, how's it going with your clients that have CDK?" I said, "Hey, let me, we're going to figure it out." But I'll tell you what, we're here for the community. We're here to take care of each other. Greg, I wholeheartedly appreciate you volunteering your time.
Oh, no
And
problem.
I
I'll
know
do
you
what I'm going to
guys are
do. CDK's,
overwhelmed.
yeah, CDK's down. What am I going to do, right? No, just kidding.
Oh man, you have a lot of writing down to do, and I'm sure you guys got to go count your inventory and do all that. So, one thing I will ask Greg, and maybe get you back on here, is once everything goes up and running, maybe review what you actually did to get restarted, like what you
Yeah.
had to actually go and do, what were the steps necessary in order for you to get yourself adjusted again. And if you create an idea or a plan before you execute it, please feel free to share it. I'd like to get you
Yeah.
back on here to share it with everybody so that they can, because right now they're probably trying to figure that out. And I know for a fact there's several. I have a parts manager right now who has CDK, who's literally, in his inventory is not big. It's about, $150,000, $200,000, right? It's not a very big one, not like yours, which is probably 1.5 million. But either way, he's freaking out going, how do I navigate through this? And he's a fairly new parts manager. He's been doing this for about a year and a half. And I'll tell you right now, although he's gone to training and he's done everything, he doesn't know how to tackle this. And so I think this is going to be great insight for him.
Like I said, if there's any way I can help, once again, you shouldn't be. I don't know. Parts managers are a weird breed sometimes, and sometimes got to stick together. So, if you
Right.
need help with that, I'm always open on that one. But yeah,
I
it's
know, man, you are awesome. And I definitely am going to connect you with him, because
yeah,
we're part of a group and an organization, right? I mean, when you're part of the JDI team, you have access to everybody in our network, and our network is tight-lipped, and we're the guys that we're going to overcome anything. We work together to make that happen.
yeah.
So Greg, thanks for being a part of JDI. Thanks for being a part of what you do. And I appreciate you coming on here and talking to us about what's happening, what you're doing to overcome these challenges, and how you're supporting your service department to get through this, and your sales department to get through this.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having
All
me
right.
on.
Of course.
I'm
Appreciate you, buddy. Take care.